welcome everyone, and welcome to all the new viewers out there who are tuning in to this new series that I'm going to do for the next few weeks, connecting in with people, people who are healers, people who are helping people who are going through the ascension symptoms at the moment, people who are connecting in with health, to do with all levels of the body, whether it's mental, emotional, spiritual, physical body. And my first interview is going to be with my beautiful auntie, my auntie Ettel, who originally, way back in the start of 2006, put me on my Reiki healing journey. And for people out there who know that I myself am a healing practitioner, I do all forms of healing. It is to do with Reiki mainly. That's my first love, is Reiki. I do all forms of other healings like EFT, emotional freedom technique, IET, integrated energy therapy, past life regression therapy, and angelic healing. So today, our first interview is with my auntie Ettel, who is my mum's sister, who lives in England, in Manchester. And as I said, I've been hearing for all of my life, since the time I was small, that my aunt was this amazing healer. And I only connected into the healing journey from 2002 when I had an experience of having Reiki healing on myself, because one of my other cousins had done Reiki healing on me. And I decided in 2006, when I was ready and I was more spiritually aware, that I would go on my healing road and learn how to do Reiki. So Ettel, how are you, my beautiful auntie?
How are you?
Great, thank you. So welcome. And just for the viewers out there who don't know you, obviously I do because you're my aunt and it's very easy. But for the viewers out there who don't know who you are, maybe you could give a little bit of an introduction about who you are and what you do.
Right. Well, obviously I'm our auntie, Auntie Ethel, and I was born in Dublin. And my spiritual journey started. Bits and pieces going on throughout the life, you know, when you're small. And then when my father got cancer back in 79, we went through an awful lot of stuff with him, and then he passed over, and that left me in a terrible state. So I went into a deep depression, and then I started experiencing things not the norm, you know. And I literally signed myself into a psychiatric ward, and because I didn't know what was happening to me, I thought I was going mad. And went in there, and they were saying I was suffering with, I just had my daughter, they were saying I was suffering with postnatal depression. But this was nothing to do with postnatal depression. I was seeing things, I was sensing things and picking up on people's energies and auras, and I could have told you what they'd had for their dinner the night before, you know. So it absolutely terrified me. But and I knew it was nothing to do with tablets or anything. I took myself off all of that, and I thought I'm just going with it, you know. And so it was while I was in there, in the depths of despair, that I had this amazing awakening. And all I can say is the first things I heard was a voice saying, "There is no death, only change." And I thought, where the bloody hell's that coming from? You know, what on earth is that? And what do you mean there's no death, only change? And we'd only just lost my father, you know, watched him being buried. And then about 5 minutes after, I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I had this what you call an awakening, and light coming in, and just amazing spiritual experiences. And it was knowing things about the person that was sitting next to me. Somebody could walk into the room and I knew if they had cancer, I could smell it. I could look into people's bodies, and there was all sorts of terrifying things. They weren't amazing, like I'd say now. It was absolutely terrifying. And I really thought, I'm losing it. And but then the other side comes in, you know, all the spiritual stuff. And so I thought, right, I've got to get out of here, you know, and find out what all of this is. Because I knew, even simply by talking to the doctor, you know, he didn't have a clue what I was talking about or what I was experiencing. you have to be that person to understand it.
Yeah.
A psychiatrist is reading from a book.
Yeah.
So, a textbook. Anyway, you have to experience stuff like that to understand people. So I decided I've got to get out of there. But I'd been in 3 months. I came out on St. Patrick's Day, 1980, which is 40 years on. And I was agoraphobic, and I decided that I would read, study, and meditate a lot. And that's how I spent my days and my nights, reading, studying, meditating. But I also knew by this time that I had spiritual guides by all the things that was happening. And so I would interact with them and say, this is what you want me to do. Teach me, show me, send me the knowledge. There was no such thing as the internet now where you just press a button. There's a book there, It was like I'd send off for books to America, and I'd have to wait 2 and 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, eventually it all came, and the knowledge came like you would not believe. I just said to the guides, just send me the knowledge, understanding, and clarity. It's no good having one without the other. So anyway, you'd be amazed how they turned up. One guy turned up with a car with a boot full of books and the back seat, because some woman had died and she'd left all these books, and he asked me, was I interested in, it was like food from heaven,
of course,
And but in the meantime, I'm seeing colors, I'm seeing energies, I'm seeing my children's auras, and so you're still trying, and we're talking 40 years ago, and you couldn't talk to anybody about that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and of course, religions and priests, I couldn't talk to anybody like that. They'd think you were
totally mad.
Totally. And they're what their what you call it was on anything like that, talking to spirits, all this. It's funny this. I always remember talking to a priest later on, years after, and saying, from my memory, you always used to say, call on Jesus, and call on Saint Anthony, and call on this one, and Mother Mary, and all that, and talk to them and tell them what you want. Yeah, all of a sudden, if it's your Auntie Nellie, or it's your this one or that one relative, it's all bad. That's how they made it out to be, you see.
Yeah.
So anyway,
and I suppose in a way that's learned behavior.
Absolutely.
It's learned behavior, because that's what their teachings is, and that was their belief, and that was, from my understanding of it, is because they were taught as well that this is the way it is, and you stay underneath the umbrella, and you teach it the way we are being taught, and don't teach anything else.
Sorry. Yeah, it's also total ignorance.
Yeah.
So because when you've experienced something yourself, not reading from a book, you've experienced it, then you can teach about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So years went on, and I was still doing the reading and the studying, and then I started having people coming in. Now we're talking like spiritual healing. I started doing that. I did it on my neighbours, my friends, everybody, and then members of the family, and everybody would word of mouth, And it was amazing how, when I said to the guides, okay, I think I'm ready now, send them.
Yeah.
And I stipulated, I'm not going to advertise, because I was housebound. I had children, I'm not advertising. If I'm meant to be doing this, they can do their job, the guides. You send them. And by God, did they. And so here we are in 2021.
Yeah.
It is, isn't it?
It is 2021. 40 years on.
40 years on, and I'm still on the first round of the ladder.
Yeah.
But that was when those people started coming, and which then led me into Reiki, because the only reason I've done Reiki was certificate was involved.
Yeah.
It wasn't a calling into Reiki, but that's what brought me into it. I had to have certificates, because people were saying, who told you could heal?
Yeah.
They were always saying that, well, and I'd have to stand there explaining myself. Yeah. So in the end, I had a young woman who came in and who was going on a course called Reiki. And I said, what is it? And she said, it's similar to what you do, Ethel, but you get a certificate. And I said, okay, that'll do me. Give me the woman's number, you know, and I'll see if she'll come out, because I was housebound, as you know.
Yeah.
And anyway, when I rang her and asked her to come out and do my first level 1 and so on, she says, no, I don't do house calls. Because I said, obviously I'm housebound, so you'll have to come to me. No, I don't do house calls, you come to me. Oh, says, well, then you're not the one for me then.
Yeah.
This Reiki master, you know.
Yeah.
So I had learned that the master will appear. You will find a teacher. And
when the student is ready, the master appears. Yeah.
And so I put him over in Oldham, and a lady came in, seen the notice, rang me up. She was called Sarah, and she said, you're interested in doing your Reiki? I said, yeah. I said, but you'd have to come to me. And she did. So she made me wait. She'd done me level 1. She come to the house, done me level 1, and then another 6 months later, level 2, and a year later, masters. But in the meantime, I was non-stop doing the healing. But the more I was doing it, the higher the vibration was going. Yeah. And the more meditating I was doing and all the rest of it, all that is energy work, you know, it raises your vibrations. And the more you're in tune and in touch with your guides, the more they can do. And it was like, and I had this kind of a relationship with them where I'd say, come on, get your finger out now, I need help here, you know, for people that was coming in. Because I learned that speak to them as you would your best friend.
Yeah.
I don't mean all reverend and everything, oh, you know, holier than thou. No, you know, they're normal people just like us. Yeah. Only on a different level, that's all. Yeah. So moving on from there, where did that lead me to?
Well, you, because I remember you even saying that to me way back in the start, that you have, before when you had done your healing first, what was the difference between what way you did it then compared to what it was like when you learn how to do Reiki and you learn how to do the chakras and you're working down the body? How was it different? How did you practice Reiki before? How did you practice healing before you did Reiki? What was the difference?
Well, I just put hands-on healing. And at that time, I didn't see as much as I was seeing later on. Yeah. But it did come in where the more you did it, the more your frequency would rise. Then the more intent you were doing healing, the more the guides knew that you meant business.
Yeah.
And I would talk to them and say, you know, I need all the help I can get here. I'm not working on my own. Because we're sending people in every day, every night, you know.
Yeah. And I think as well, if it's to do also with your intention, like, because I know you and I know the way you taught us, your students, would be that it has to come from the right place, that when you're doing some form of healing on somebody, that you're asking for healing for them from your heart center, that it's all to do with the intention of asking for the healing, that you're not out there to be a cash cow looking for, oh, I want my business to be amazing.
Oh,
so, and there is people, we've seen that over our years of doing that, that there is people out there who go, oh, I want to be a Reiki practitioner, and 6 months later, I want to do it and practice, and they think that they're going to have like loads of clients. It doesn't work like that.
How long did I work doing healing before I could even not a charge, a donation of a $5?
I know.
A $5, you know, after years of doing it for nothing. Yeah. And it wasn't about the money. It was never about the money. It was about I wanted my life to mean something. Yeah. Well, I was putting the hours in and the days and the months because I'm housebound, you know, and it was just not shifting. But then I found out later on that was my calling. That was my sacred contract. I was meant to be in this house. Yeah. Because it gave me the time, like it's given everybody now, lockdown. Yeah. It gave me the time to read, to study, to meditate, and do all that towards the end result of my healing. Yeah. And so with putting all that work in, I would expect good results. Yeah. I would expect, my intention would be, I'm here to help that person. I would be mentally talking to my guides. I would be mentally seeing the energy coming out of my hands. Yeah. And then I started seeing the energy coming out of my hands and seeing their energy. And it was just fabulous. Yeah. And then, of course, every patient was different. and you started sensing and picking up all sorts. But like I said, it started shifting over the first few years. You were seeing colours, you were sensing all sorts, picking up on the guides. You had a great sense of humour.
Yeah.
You were a lovely company to be with.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
because it's
so,
also different energy as well, because you know, I know that from your teachings to us too, that you don't see these guys being put up on this pedestal, because that's the belief and the conditions and that we've been taught all of these years, where, you know, oh, Jesus has to be put up on this pedestal because he is the only Son of God. And we're like, no, but we're all children of God. Why can't we all do it? Why don't we all have this part within us that we can all connect in and do exactly what he did? Was he came down here to be human, even though yes, he had a vibration that was different, but yet we all come down here and we can all connect into that source energy, connect into the potential of what we can do for ourselves.
But this is what the church and the religions didn't know back then.
Yeah.
That we are all children of God. When I say they didn't know, because they just used to read it out of a text and what have you.
Yeah.
I've had my experiences. I've been to spirit and back. I've been out of my body and had astral traveling, as you know, and all sorts. And seeing my own body. I remember seeing my own, two of me, and I kept saying, there's two of me. When I first seen, you know, there was two of me, two hands, two. But then the stuff that I learned afterwards, oh my God, I found out that was like your spirit, you know, I was tuning into my spirit.
Yeah.
But going back to the energy thing, we're all made up of pure golden light.
Yeah.
And that golden light is energy. It's universal energy. And there's nothing that you see is not made with this energy. And it was an experience I had one night, and I realized that it wasn't just in everything around, it was in people as well. Yeah. And so golden light, I mean, pure golden light. And many times I would stand and watch the people when they were doing healing, or doing healing myself, watching that light coming in like down through a funnel, through the person's head. I often seen their spirit body lifting up, guides working on them, and it was absolutely incredible. Yeah. But like I said, it was the realization that all the spiritual ones that we were taught, you know, we looked up to, you call on Jesus and you call on God and Mother Mary and all that. Every single one of them were human. Yeah. Once. Every single one of them. And every single one of them had to go through the trials and tribulations that we have. Yeah. In every lifetime. We've not lived just one lifetime. We've lived thousands of lifetimes. In every shape, color, creed. Yeah. And because the whole idea was that the God that's within us wanted to experience life in the human body, not just the human body, all over the universe. Yeah. Let's get it straight, you know, we're not the only ones. It's arrogance, you know, to say we're the only ones on this in this universe.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
There's universes within universes. So anyway, and so when you get a taste of some of that, oh my God, talk about mind-blowing. Yeah. Well, that's when the more you learned, the more frequency your energy goes through the roof. And so the amazing healing you can do. And I always remember, because I'd studied the Bible years ago on my own, studied it like you would not believe, because I wanted to know and be able to answer people's questions. A lot of it didn't make sense. A lot of it didn't make sense. But what I did latch on to was all Jesus' teachings was, which I already knew, the kingdom of God is within you. Yeah. Christ is within you. Place where you stand is holy ground. Of course it is. If you are God, anywhere you are, this is just an overcoat.
Shell, yeah.
Machine to get your spirit around from here, there, and everywhere. And you need it to get through the life. And then when you finish your life, you just step out. It's like stepping off the stage. Yeah. And so I latched onto a lot of his teachings. Anything I can do, you can do also, but even greater works. Yeah. And by God, have we seen it? Yeah. We've seen amazing things. And I used to sit there and having conversations with the spiritual ones, not only Jesus, descended masters, Mother Mary, Katumi, you know, Kuan Yin, Saint Germain, you will all have heard of those. They're all there willing to serve. They're in the spiritual. And they're there as soon as you start calling them. They're saying, we're here because we're all one.
Yeah.
So if you're reaching out for help, ask. You won't get if you don't ask. So I started asking. Oh my God.
But it's like when I had my first experience, because I think I've told that in some of my stories. When I had my first experience with you, say for instance, when I went over way back in 2006 to do Reiki, my first level 1 Reiki. And I remember you saying that, talking that about your experiences with Jesus in the course. And, for me, my experience with Jesus here was not about, we weren't very religious family. As you know, my dad being Hindu, my mother being Catholic, but we were sent to mass because that was the way it was then. It was all the conditions and beliefs that the Catholic Church would have taught us that we had to go, right? If you don't go, you're going to go to hell. And it was all of that part. But so I didn't really know Jesus in that personal level. And when I had my first experience with Reiki with you, I don't really remember this, but I remember you said to me, okay, well then no time like the present, because when I go to you for the Reiki courses, I always stayed over with you. So we would have full two days. It was a Saturday and a Sunday, and I would stay over that night, and we would sit the chats all night. We'd be talking from the Saturday morning or the Friday night till the Sunday, then I went home. But my first experience, the normal, yeah. But I remember my first experience when you said to me, okay, well, no time like the present, Hazel. Oh, this is I was finished the level 1. You said, no time like the present. Now I want you to do a session on me. And you got up on the healing bed, and I remember having the sweats, thinking, oh my God, she's going to know that I'm crap at this, right? And I remember going down, not really knowing what I was doing, but working down your body. And just because obviously we both are tapping in, but you have those gifts to be able to see color, see people's auras. I can't see that, so I'm just going on what I feel within me. So I'm more of a clairsentient, where I feel I know what my heart is telling me to do, but I would just go on the feeling. I don't have any clear audience. I don't get this to see spirit. I don't get to see what you see. So I just really had to trust in doing the healing. And I remember moving down the body, and I got to where your root chakra was, and I just moved from one place to the next. And when I got to the root chakra, I saw this quick flash of the image of Jesus. And I didn't see it like you would know what I would know Jesus to be. I saw it like the Shroud of Turin. I saw it like the imprint. And I remember getting that shock. Oh, did I just see that? Because I wasn't calling on Jesus. I wasn't, I wouldn't have been a holy person. I wouldn't have been, a Jesus lover as such. But I just saw that face real fast, and I absolutely knew I saw it, and I knew who it was. And when I got to the end, and I came up, and I remember saying to you, well, and you were saying, well, how was that? And I said, well, oh, you're not going to believe this, Ettel. I just saw Jesus. And you're like, the Jesus fella. Asher, he's here all the time. And I was like, what? Because I have never experienced that. And like for me, to have my first experience of Reiki, doing Reiki like that, especially in a setting where it was just me and you, it wasn't a course setting with everybody else, it was just me and you. So it was a very personal experience to see him like that. And I knew 1000% I saw it. And like now going down the road, people say, I have had so many experiences with Jesus, the Jesus fella. I've had so many experiences. And when I talk and I speak to my clients, say, oh, well, I felt Jesus. I know he's there. But I'm sure there's people that go and leave me and say, oh, she won't believe me talking to Jesus. She thinks she's talking to Jesus. But why not? Why do you think that we can't?
The problem, Hazel. They're not the ones with the problem. Anybody that starts, slagging off or what have you, you're okay with it because you know what you experienced.
Yeah.
I know what I experienced. Yeah. I know what I've seen in years, and I couldn't give a toss about anybody else out there, as in all the so-called holy ones, Yeah. I would always, and I said it from day one, and trusting as well. Anything that I ever needed, I would always just sit down and say, well, when I really needed the help, I said, okay, now listen, because I hadn't been to church or anything like that for years, so I was finished with religion, because there was an awful lot of discrepancies in it, and I just didn't want to know. And not only our religion at the time, Catholic, it was the Protestant religion, the Jewish religion, and I'd studied everything, and I went, don't want to know, get it away from me. And so if this is real, right, that's when I started having my big relationship with the Jesus fella and the others, you know, because I trusted them more than a human being, actually a human being. And so when I needed the help, I just turn around and say, right, I'm handing it over to you. The ball's in your court. I'll do the job that I'm here for.
Yeah.
Well, as regards to bills and everything else, that's your worries, not mine.
Yeah.
So it was always taken care of. And I have never, ever, ever worried from that day to this about a bill getting paid, whether being skinned or all that. No, never was. It would, like Jesus said, you know, your needs will be met. Trust.
Yeah.
And I trust 1,000,000,000%. Yeah. And it's amazing.
But it's like your guides don't give you anything that you can't handle. And I remember having the same experience where I had one of my first clients that came to me who was very holy, went down the road of, you know, oh, don't worry, Hazel, God will lead you down that path. You know, she was very much, very, very Catholic, I suppose. And again, you know, no judgment. Everybody has their own personal journey. But I was like, okay, but she said to me, but Jesus never charged for healing, because I was doing this healing. And so Jesus never charged for healing. And I remember going, oh God, maybe, yeah, she's right. Jesus never charged for healing. But I went to the library that maybe 2 or 3 days after that experience. And I said to God, show me, give me the knowledge, send me the knowledge. And I stood in the library that day, and I closed my eyes, and I trusted what books came to me was for my learning, what I needed.
Yeah.
And the 3 books that I pulled off the shelf that day had Jesus in the title. So I knew they wanted me to learn more about Jesus on all levels of who he really was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the religious books on Jesus. He was a man. It was all about his journey, his real journey. I went the Essenes, the books with the Essenes, the Dolores Cannon's books, all of that learning that I got from Jesus on all different levels of who he really was. And I remember when I literally just finished reading, I think I probably went around through 10 books about Jesus. And say for instance, it was on a Monday morning, and the door knocked, and it was one of the Jehovah's Witnesses. And she goes, "Hiya, Hazel." She used to drop in the tower books or whatever they drop in. She goes, "How are you, Hazel?" And she had her little student with her, or her, you know, newbie that was coming into the Jehovah's Witness. And she said, "But Hazel, who is Jesus anyway?" And I said, "Well, wait, I tell you." And I went into this whole, she couldn't get away from the door. She was like, "Oh, Jesus Christ."
It was the same here when down the years when they'd come here. Yeah. And you know, you'd stand there, and I'm not ignorant. I wouldn't shut the door in the face, and I'd say, "Go on, I'm listening to you. Go on." Well, Jesus this and Jesus that. Now I'm telling you, I would have wipe the floor with them, you know, with the Bible.
Yeah.
And this Psalms this and blah blah. And I said, "So while you're listening, you know, you're quoting all of that," I says, "Can you just answer a question?" Go on. I says, "Whatever happened to Jesus in the 18 missing years not recorded in the New Testament?" And she looked at me, you know, she said, "What do you mean?" But really annoyed, you know, "What do you mean?" I says, 1 minute you're reading the Bible and he's, how old was he then? The next minute
12 or 13 in the temples where he got lost.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then the next thing is you turn the page and he's 32, meeting John the Baptist. And I was like reading that Bible as a story, and I went, "Whoa, hang on a minute, it's a big section missing. What happened there? There's something going on here, you know, what happened?" And that's where you do, because if you're really reading a story, you listen, you know, and there's a big gap. But she couldn't answer it. And she said, "So can you tell me?" I said, "Yeah." And so I started explaining to her where he traveled extensively, and ended up over in India and places like that, you know, in the 18 missing years, and so on and so on. And she went off proper peeved because I was telling her. But it was about a month later she came back, and she said she had gone off and looked it up, because I told her which book to get, you know. Remember the Aquarian Gospels?
Yeah, brilliant book.
Remember that one?
Yeah.
And that was the nearest one that you'll get to the truth. Yeah. Still a lot missing, but it's the nearest, rather than the original Bible, you know. Anyway, and not only her, the local priest coming in.
Yeah.
Well, he first came looking down his nose at me. Who told you could heal? You know, all this, you know, the attitude that they have.
Yeah.
and the little nun. Now I could read their minds. It was like, when you see somebody and you get this horrible feeling, the energy. That's what I was reading. The energy. And she was looking down her nose, and some of the things she was saying, and not judging, speaking the truth, and I remember turning around and saying to the priest as well, says, tell me if I'm wrong. I says, do you remember Jesus saying, anything I can do, you can do also, but even greater works? I says, well, that's what I do here.
Yeah.
That's what I do. I'm not saying greater works, but well, in some cases it has been, amazing things.
Yeah.
And I says, so why can't everybody do it? That energy that was in Jesus is the same energy that's in you, me, and everybody else, that little nun, and once you get that, and once you understand that energy is within every person, I was bluntly told one night, when you look at the next person, look to the back of the eyes.
Yeah.
And that's where you'll see me.
Yeah.
In the person, not in the body.
Well, they say that the eyes are the window to the soul. The eyes are the windows of the soul. And it's like when you look into everybody's eyes, that God is within every single person. It's like the way the Hindus would say, namaste, I honor the God within you, because you're honoring the God within them, no matter who their God is, who they believe it to be, because we're all on our own personal journeys. We all have and again, whether it be the nun or the priest who comes at you, sometimes it's, again, learned behavior, and you forgive them because they know what they do, because they don't really know, because it's just something that was taught to them, and they didn't really want to question it, because, they have their faith, and that's great.
But Hazel, that's where I would be saying to people, I used to back off and don't say anything. But they never learn until you teach them. They never learn or speak your truth. So I got into the habit of being very blunt and speaking my truth. But what? So that I'd look, rather than looking bad, just agreeing with everything she was saying. No, I didn't. And I would speak the truth.
And it's okay as well. I teach that to all of any time, I've learned from you, and your teachings have come down onto me. And I have always said that in any of my courses, that anyone who comes here, and what I'm saying to you is because I've read the books that I've read, and I'm regurgitating it through my filter of how I perceive that book to be, or how I perceive it to be. But sometimes that you might be sitting here and go, oh no, I don't really get that, what she means, or it might go over your head, but that's okay too, because what I believe it to be, it might not be what you believe it to be. And if it means, especially when we're doing Reiki courses, or we're doing any form of, whether it even it is through this form of teaching people, that something that we say today goes over your head and it doesn't resonate with you right now, that's okay, because you're just not ready for this information right now.
Exactly. Yeah. And people even today are not ready for what's coming, of knowledge and truths and everything. And when it hits, it's like, shock horror.
Yeah, because
you and me.
Yeah, I did say that actually only recently in one of my posts, that this time that we're living in now, it's the great awakening. It's not about a little awakening, and sometimes people it's like what we had to experience when I went through my start, when I was learning at first, and I was like, oh my God, that's 18 missing years of Jesus. You're shocked into believing, because you start to read all the books and they all are validating each other. And you say, oh my God, how come I wasn't taught this? How come then I never heard this being taught on the pulpit? How come, I've never learned this, but I'm only learning it now. And all of the information came in tandem with each other. It's all coming in at the same time, because your guides are giving you that information as you need it, when you're ready for it. And again, you teach it. I've often taught it to people. I mean, I remember being on your level 1 when I was on my first Reiki course, level 1, that we had the experience of that lady that was there when you were chatting about how you came into doing Reiki and your journey, and that you were telling exactly the same story about the priest coming. And the lady that was sitting beside us, you remember we had a lady who got up and left because she didn't like what you were saying.
Yes. She came back though, didn't she?
Yeah. But I know, but see, it's amazing how she does. And if you want to actually tell that story, because it just goes to show you, at that moment in 2006, she wasn't ready for that information. But I remember
her friend was.
Her friend was, yeah. The two of them came together, remember?
two came together, but when she went off and she said, and I didn't like it, she went back to the office and it was full of people, and they were all sitting discussing things. And what I had been explaining that day, she repeated it all to all the women. And she said this and she said that, and with this and with that. And I wasn't having any of it. I discussed about the
18 missing years.
That, but also touching on Ireland as well, and it's hitting dirt,
Yeah, and the triggers.
About Magdalene's sisters and the babies that were sold abroad, and you name it, it all came out. Do you remember we were having that discussion that day? And she said, and got up, and I'm not listening to this, and it never went on. I says, take your blinkers off, love. I'd love to be a fly on the wall when it all comes out. And it did come out 6 months later.
Yeah.
But I would never speak about something that I don't know anything about. I've had to experience stuff, because I was dealing with the patients coming into my house for healing with traumas from years ago, being in the laundries.
Yeah.
And the baby's being sold. So I said, nobody dragged you in the door, love. There you go. And off she went. And out of that group.
Yeah, I remember your face, because you said to me, oh my God, well, it's a first for everything. That's the first time someone has gotten up and left. She left at the start. She's only in about an hour.
And it's all down to ignorance. That's all. Ignorance is lack of knowledge. And so, and about 2 weeks later, whatever happened, I started getting these phone calls left, right, and centre, and all the women had worked with her. Yeah. So some was coming out of curiosity, and the others was absolutely, which went on to do the Reiki 1, 2, and Masters, Yeah. So you see, she was meant to come here that day and to stand up and be the drama queen, look at me like, and I'm not listening to this, and then go off and shouting and bawling and slagging me off back at her job. But look what happened. It wasn't for her, it was for them. Yeah. It was for the other women. And so it was amazing how they worked that one. That was amazing how the guys worked that one.
But it's again, it just didn't resonate with her at that moment, because she had to look at stuff that was inside her that she didn't want to look at right then. But you did say that years later she came back and ended up going down the road of doing a healing journey. Absolutely.
Yeah. And coming for treatments.
Yeah.
So it just shows you everything happens for a reason. But you were talking about that weekend. I often smile because you were on it. Yeah. So you're my validation as well. Yeah. And I remember one fella standing up, and he said to me, no, he didn't stand up, he was sitting amongst a group, and he said, I was discussing about everything happens for a reason, every person comes into your life for a reason, whatever, everything is mapped out for you. And so you're meant to be in a certain place, to meet a certain person, Yeah. And next of all, he says, like, for example, put you on the spot. For example, so I said, well, for example, I said, years ago when I was in the hospital in the beginning, I got up in the night to go down to the toilet. I was like a little old woman. I was very, very poorly at the time. So I shuttled down to the toilet, these old wards, went down to the toilet, and as I'm coming back, comes out to make my way back up this ward, and I noticed this blood on the floor in the first bed, and pulled the curtains back. Oh Lord, and this young woman, had slashed her wrist. Remember this, Hazel?
Oh, do I watch? Yeah.
And she'd slashed her wrist, so I went and pressed the bell, because no nurses there, they were at an emergency, so I pressed the bell and they all come running, That's cutting a long story short, that's what happened that night. So I had to be there at that moment in time to save her life, because the crew came in, she had died, they got her heart going again, and then got her off over to the other hospital and had her sewn up and all the rest of it. But I never knew what happened to her until, fast forward, to the weekend that you come over, and you were doing your level 1, wasn't it?
Because that was the same weekend where that same guy asked that question, and the girl who was, I remember from the girl who was helping you out, she would be like the way I have when I'm doing a Reiki course. I have volunteers that help you through the weekend. And she had been on that course with you many, many times over. And she said, oh, this is the first time I ever heard you talk about that your experience of having that.
Never mentioned that.
You never mentioned it. And I remember where I was sitting in the room. I was sitting right beside you, and there was about 10 people on that course, and this young girl that was sitting in the corner, who was very, very shy and wouldn't say anything. You know, at the start when we do our courses, we introduce ourselves, how we got on the journey, how we arrived there that day. We'd all given our introduction to who we were, and she said, no. And she passed on to our friend.
Very shy. Yeah,
very,
wouldn't
very
speak.
shy. And then you tell that story. He asked you to tell that story of the coincidence and how we come into each other's lives and how these things happen.
I was meant to be there that night.
Yeah.
So this is when I went in to make a cup of tea for all of us. We had a break.
Yeah.
And we went into the kitchen. And this one who was sat in the corner come up behind me and she said, Ethel, what year was that you were in the hospital? And as she was saying it, I'm looking at her and saying, where do I know her from? You know, you didn't really know somebody. Yeah. Where do I know her from? She was bugging me, you know? Yeah. And then she says, what year was it? I says, 1981. And she said, yeah, it was January 1981. And she said, were you in the last bed? Says, and you were in the first. Never forget it as long as I live.
Oh, neither
and
will
the
I.
realization, yeah, it was her.
Yeah.
She just held up her wrists, showing me her scars, you know. And the two of us just give one another a big, massive hug. Do you remember? And do you remember when I walked in to tell you that?
I will never forget that, because I remember she stayed in the room, in this living room where we do the course, and we all went into the kitchen. You came in, turned on the kettle, but you went back to her because she didn't want to come into us. And you were in there for a few minutes, and then you came in and you stood. I remember I was standing in your kitchen, and she said, "You're not going to believe it." I won't say her name, but inside, she's the one that I saved. We were like, what? Like, I mean, the hair, if ever there was a moment when the hair stands up on my back, I have a lot of hair on my back, but when the hair stood up my back, I could not believe it, that I was there to witness that experience of how it felt. I knew 1000% that was that girl.
That was 1981, wasn't it, when that happened? What was the year that you came over now?
That was 2006.
So how many years in between?
I know.
And of all the people on this planet to walk through my door to do the level 1, that weekend was me.
Yeah. And it was amazing. Remember, she was very shy on the day 1, and then by the time day 2 came, she said she didn't get a wink of sleep the night night from the Saturday. She said the guides had her up all night, and she said, I can't sleep. And she didn't have any colors, but she wanted to make a picture for you. And she drew a picture that was made out of nail varnish, all different colored nail varnish. And she came in and she says, I want to give you this present because, you know, obviously what you done for me, I want to give you this present. And she gave you this picture that she kept seeing. She said, I kept seeing this.
The guides kept showing her.
And she painted that picture with the nail varnish, and she handed it to you. And you were like to us, oh my God, this is amazing. This is where I put myself when I meditate.
Nobody knew that. Nobody knew it.
Yeah.
Only her. And when she showed us that picture, the next morning it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
She brought it. And I nearly fell through the floor, because what it was, I used to always put myself on a little grass island thing with the river running past. I'd be sat on it, you know, cross-legged. And there's a waterfall, and the sun's up in the sky, you know, and I'd sit there doing the meditation. When I'd have me out of body thing, you know, that's where I'd put myself. And she described it right down. I've still got the picture to this day. I
can still remember it because I saw the picture, and I remember it was like the yin and yang. The sun was like the yin and yang, and there was a tree of life on the hill on that little verge up above.
Everything.
Oh my God, it was. And I mean, and those are the moments that especially for me, looking back on my experiences and how they were my aha moments, right? That there are moments that you go, this is where I know that my guides are giving me those little things to really validate that these things are happening.
Proving to you all the time. And once you do, you just come all the time, don't they?
And that's why it's so lovely to do Reiki level 1s. You know, in level 1 courses, when you see all the newbies coming and they're wide-eyed.
Things with level 1s.
Yeah, amazing.
No, there was amazing things happening years ago, but the stuff that's happening now it's triple that. You know what I mean? It's just they're seeing more, they're sensing more. They're coming out with the light language. Now, do you remember when that started again in my living room on one weekend? And it was like, she's talking double Dutch, this woman. No, she was speaking light language. I didn't know what it was at the time. That was years ago.
Because I remember you saying to me, because at that point, so I was 2006, I did my level 1 and 2, and then 2007 end of 2007, a year later, I did my master's. And then I started teaching people in 2012. Oh, sorry, no, I didn't. I did my master's in 2013, because I had a big gap between 2007, where I went and just sort of did a little bit on myself, a little bit on the family, and I wasn't doing it as a practice, as in set up a practice where I was actually doing it as a job or a business. And I only did a couple of clients in 2006 when I opened my business, and then 2013 did the Reiki master course with you. And I had only seen a couple of clients at that time, so I wasn't, I was only doing the basic Reiki, right? And I remember I was only my two clients, the main two clients that I had, they asked me, what happens when you do your Reiki masters? And I said, when you do Reiki masters, that means you can teach other people. And the two of them said, oh, teach us. Yeah. And I remember they were my first two clients. Originally it was meant to be those two, and then by the time they coming up to that weekend of the that Reiki 1 weekend, it was the two girls that were my clients all that time, and then 3 other girls had wanted to do it and then cancelled. So it ended up being only those 2 girls. And I remember I've been on so many courses where I have 13 and 14, 20 and 30 people in courses, and I was going, oh, I'm so embarrassed. I'm going out here to do a course with just 2 people. I remember that feeling of, people going to think I'm so crap at this that I only have 2 people on my course. Now I understand that my guides are only giving me what I could handle at that moment. Yeah. And I remember you saying to me, it was coming up to that experience, you were saying to me, oh, I had so much amazing things happening, Hazel. I have to let you know these amazing things that were happening. And you told me about the experience that you were to have in that week previous to my course, that they were talking to each other in different language. You said, just to let you know, they started talking to each other in a different language. Just going to give you this information about this lady, Judy Satori, who's a light language channeler. She channels all different languages from all different star beings, whether it's the Arcturians, the Lyrans, the Pleiadians, all those other planets out there that we think, oh, nobody else could be living on them. There's no beings there. We're the only ones.
I'm in for a shock.
And I remember literally, it's like as my guides gave me the information right the way up to my course, that this is you telling me about the channeling. Then that 2 days later, I got a book back from my box of books that I had in my old house. They arrived back in my house. The top of those books was open to channeling. So my guides were giving me the next bit of information. And then on that weekend, my 2 girls who I had level 1 Reiki, one of them started speaking in a different language. I was like, what? Talk about being thrown in the deep end, but I already had the knowledge because I had read the book. I knew what channeling was. You had given me the information, so I wasn't really afraid that if it did happen, I said, okay, I'm going to go with the flow here. Let's see what happens. And that's one of the things that was one of my questions I was going to ask you. There's so much difference compared to 40 years ago when you started off just doing hands-on healing or Reiki, compared to the new energies that are coming in now, like light language, like channeling, like the way you have people who use their hands as tools, psychic surgery, all of those. You want to explain a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, as it went forward, that's when we started seeing for the first time the movers.
Yeah.
And now when that started happening, it was like, holy mother, she's lost the plot. The woman on the bed. Because I was doing my normal healing, normal Reiki, and but I didn't realize at the time that every time you do a healing session, you raise your frequency. So the more you do it and the more you meditate, the more you study, every time you do anything like that, your frequency is going up and up and up and up. In other words, you're becoming very, very powerful, your energy. So when it does get to that frequency, now the guides can step in and do the more exotic stuff. For example, with the movers was, I'm sure your people know you've got 2 bodies to start with. Your physical body and your spiritual body, and one's above the other when you're lying down having a healing session. So the guides always work on going up here, okay? And whatever they do with that person's body has a knock-on effect down onto the physical. So if they do the shoulder and move it, the body on the bed moves, So the first time that happened, it was this lady came for a healing session, and I mind my own business, stood there, hands up, in another world, you know, seeing the colours and everything else, opens my eyes, and this woman's legs up over my shoulders. And I'm like, holy Jesus, what's going on here? And then she was stretched out, and I'm watching her, and I'm like, I've got an absolute nutter on the bed. I thought, because I hadn't met her before, I've got a nutter on the bed. It's one of them. And but that's how they threw me in at the deep end.
Yeah.
They started moving her and stretching her, and well, she wasn't phased. I mean, they would never do it to anybody that couldn't handle it, you know.
Yeah.
And so it was me that was wanting to handle it, you know. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
So I says, well, if this is you lot, you better look after her, you know what I mean? Otherwise, I'm never doing this ever again. In other words, you know, I'm finished. If I don't trust, you know what I mean, I'm gone.
Yeah.
And when it finished, that was amazing. And this, I'm like, yeah, right. And I couldn't wait to get rid of her, you know, off she went. So I rang the one that sent her and I said, what the hell was that? Who's she? Yeah. And I told her what she'd done, and she said she'd never do that in a million years. And look at the problem that she had and all that. I said, yeah, well, that's what she was doing.
Yeah.
And but it wasn't until about 2 or 3 days later that a man came in for a healing session from the other end of the country. Nothing to do with her. Not as if anybody was talking between one of them.
Yeah.
And he had really bad problems. And weeks back, and he'd been in a car accident, and he had to go for physio 2 and 3 times a week. It was so bad. And he'd made his way to my house, had a session, and then they started. And it was like a physio, giving them a proper physio, you know, stretching, pulling, twisting, flipped over, you name it, he got it.
Yeah.
And he sat up on the bed in the end and cried his heart out. And I said, is it upsetting you that bad? He said, not that. He said, that was amazing.
Yeah.
It's the knowing that somebody's working with me.
Yeah.
And he said, I have the same exercises from the nurses, but it's all pain. And everything they did was pain. He said, where's that? It was nothing.
Yeah.
Because you see, they were working on his spirit body.
Because I know that myself, because and for anyone else out there who don't understand what movers are, when people come, whether they're our clients that might, and especially we have clients that come, and some clients literally in the first session, when they actually come in the very first session, can move straight away, because again, their guides know what they can handle. And then you have others who over a period of time, they then build up to get to a point where they've met you a few times, they get really comfortable with you, and then the guides take off. And I remember take off moving them, and I remember seeing VHS videos of some of your movers way back. So we're going back to VHS times when they were actually on VHS video, and shown it. But you didn't, because we didn't have the platforms that we have now, where you know it can be instant, where you're putting a video up on Instagram or whatever. Yeah. And again, I remember at that time you saying, don't ever show it to anybody, because the guides will only give you what you can handle. It might not be meant for somebody else.
And we always ask for permission as well. When,
always, ask for permission.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know what movement is, because when I had my first experience with one of my clients that had got that little bit of movement, I remember seeing videos of your movers. And then seeing that and going, oh Jesus, I don't know whether I'd be able to handle that. And when I got my first client, I got on the bed and her legs started to take off. And I remember myself getting that, oh God, no. Oh God, I'm not ready for it. And the minute that I said I wasn't ready, the legs stopped dead. And I was like, oh shit, I just stopped it from happening. Because I was then in my head saying, no, I'm not ready for it, because I got a fright, because I wasn't expecting it to do it, because the leg just went da, 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 and then it stopped dead. And I was like, oh my God, because I didn't really understand it. But the more they give you of the clients coming, where they give you,
you learn,
the more you get used to it. And by the time that girl, she still comes to me now, she's a full-on mover. I've had the experience myself. And now I understand it, because way back in the start, when we started off first, we would do our Reiki shares. You do the same, where all Reiki levels 1, 2, and 3 can come for a Reiki share, where you exchange your energy. So you'll do a session on someone on the bed, and they'll do a session on you. So you're getting that exchange of energy. And you always see the movers in those experiences, because all of the client, all the students, because most of it would be our students, all their vibrational energy, the energy is really heightened on those nights, and you'll find that you get 2 and 3 movers in the one hour.
And that's only happening, Hazel, because you're working regularly with a person or people, and you're raising your frequency with all your knowledge and everything else. Your energy goes through the roof. So they're coming in doing all sorts, and when, you know, not in a bad way, doing, look, as you know, amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And that's when I started really researching it all over, you know, when the internet came out and everything, I was researching it. There wasn't one person ever got back to me and said, oh, well, there was one person, because I'd put it out there and said, does anybody know about, you know, the movers and healing?
Yeah.
And this woman wrote back and she said, you mean when they flick their finger? I said, no, love, when they're stretched over their shoulders, when they're twisted. and it was incredible. It's the realization that, I got to go on to something really amazing here.
Yeah.
Because then it went from that to, you could get movers after doing a Reiki weekend. You could, you know, start them off, and they would, their patients would have movements.
Yeah.
Or you could do a session on a person and they get movement when they went home.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how high that frequency was.
Yeah, because I remember that story that you said that one of your students had left your course, had done a level 1 only, had gone home, didn't go home. She didn't go home. Remember, she went to her friend that was in the
had the back problem
and she was in the bed. And
Yeah.
she started working on her in the bed. And when she was working on her in the bed, then she started taking off movement. And she rang you back 3 hours later. She's like, Ethel, I can't stop her. She's still moving. And she didn't know how to stop her.
She wasn't listening. I just said, give her a glass of water and put her feet on the floor to ground her, you know.
Yeah.
The guides are saying, we've got all day. You've only got to ask us.
That's because obviously for people out there who don't understand, the guides are on a different dimension to us, different frequency to us. They work in a different way. There's no such thing as time over there for them. They're like, oh, nice one. We're going to work on this one till she's perfect in a perfect health. Where sometimes we've had those experiences where even in Reiki share nights, which would normally be about an hour and 30 minutes, has gone on from 7 o'clock till 11 o'clock at night because the guides want to fix everybody. And you're like, okay, we're human. We're down here. We have lives.
We need our sleep.
Back off. And it's okay for you, because I've said that to many of them, you know, it's okay for you to say to your guides, okay, enough is enough for tonight. Another time you can come back. You can work on them again. Take up from where you left off with the leg over the shoulder.
Well, you can do it the opposite as well. I remember when I was doing a session there in the healing room, and I got used to what was coming, you know, in the exercises, what the problem was with the ladies or the man, you know, and I knew what exercises coming next, whether it was the shoulder, the leg, or taking the leg out there, and they'd be amazing. They would be amazing. But these exercises was very slow. It's like, I don't think I've got all day. I've got people queuing up to come in. So, and I just remember saying this day, I mean, it would really go slow, but they were teaching me, well, we're here, we're going to be like it.
Yeah.
Interact. So I says, hello, you know, got a woman waiting in the kitchen, there's one out in the porch. Get a move on, please. Have we got all day? Well, like this. Because that's how I always talk to them, speak to them like that. Because you would, if that was your mate slacking, you'd tell her, wouldn't you? So they did. And all of a sudden, as soon as I said it, you know, where the legs was going like this. Yeah. You know, like, you can't even see it on the screen, but do you know what I mean, don't you?
Yeah.
Apply this.
The legs do this like real fast.
Yeah, well, then it would. It's like somebody's tuned up the knob, you know, and you go. Yeah. Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
But obviously for other people out there who don't, who've never had an experience of Reiki, it doesn't happen like that for everyone, I promise you. You know, people have come to me, I have lots and lots of clients who come and are still as a board on the bed and they don't move at all and just wake up and they feel absolutely amazing. They feel like they've had a week's sleep. They feel so light.
Yeah. When they lay on that bed and they've dropped off, they've gone out of their body.
Yeah. And like, I mean, so it's not something that movers doesn't happen for everybody. So just in case that people get frightened, they think, oh my God, I'm not getting up on her bed because my leg is just going to be up over my shoulder before I can say boo.
Hazel, they would never ever do it if they didn't know that they could handle it.
Yeah.
So if somebody gets movement, even a slight movement, the guides are doing that because they know on another level that she can hack it, she can handle it.